when I have people that register for these types of things, because you just never know when you have a nonprofit and it's still a baby really, and people are excited and they want to come to these types of events. And every time I see a registration come through, anytime I see somebody that becomes a member, it's just like I'm not really an emotional person, but I'm like, oh, somebody believes in us, you know? And so it's just so cool to see all of you here. And especially I know Christine was probably the biggest draw, but I like to think maybe you guys wanted to hear me talk for a little bit. So Christine's gonna kick off here in just a little bit, but as a thank you for coming to this, we are going to do one registration for free for the conference for this next July here, which seems like it's forever from now, but it'll be nice and warm and I can't wait. So I put everybody into a randomizer. You have to be here to win it. So let's try it out. And if I pronounce a name wrong, you guys can just yell at me. Okay. Oh, it was a fight between Carolyn and Dusty. So is Dusty here? Is that Dusty? No? Okay, well, let's try it again. Zach. Oh, there you go. Well, if you plan on coming to the conference, let me know and I will get you a free registration. If you cannot make it, also let me know and we can give it to somebody else too. Whether from your office or if you have a friend that maybe wants to go or what have you. So congratulations. I think that's like $120 value or something around there. So yeah, so yay. So with Christine's presentation here, it's going to be pretty open for you guys to be able to ask questions. If you guys have any problems you want to work out with this amazing professional while you have it, she's like, no. Use this opportunity though to learn from her and try to help yourselves along in the process here. We'll have the mics around here. So if you need one, just grab one here. But that's all I got. And again, just thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'll probably stand here and do my thing, so you can see me. I'm tall enough. I'm Christine Townsend. Thank you all for coming. Frankly, if it had been this cold when I was going to a presentation, I wouldn't have gone. So I really appreciate the effort made. This is possibly the coldest I've been in my life, and I've been to Moscow. So here I am, and I'm really excited to be here. So I want to do a couple of things. I want to go through my community engagement work that I do, which I hopefully will be helpful to you in the work that you do. And this is kind of based off my first book around this. So I'll just give a bit of background about myself to put it all into context. So I'm from, well, not from Texas, you might be able to tell. I live in Austin, Texas, but I'm originally from the UK. I've been here 9 years. When I was in the UK, I was primarily policing comms and also central government. I was a director of communications for the City of London Police. And a lot of the work I did was major incidents. So I managed Margaret Thatcher's funeral, London 2012 Olympics, and a lot of protest stuff. But the key thing in the UK is that before we're allowed to actually do any kind of crisis communications or the fun stuff, we have to do like 2 or 3 years of just community engagement comms. And the reason for this is that you can't really have effective crisis comms unless you know your communities and who you're working with. So I also run PIO Toolkit, which maybe you're aware of, but and also I've done a lot of work with NDPIO, and I always love coming to see you guys. So it's nice to see new faces as well. Always love working with the board. So what I want to do is kind of explain what community engagement is. From a sort of standard standpoint, it's collaboration essentially. It's about working with various community groups, stakeholders, and enhancing public safety and trust. And I'll talk about trust a little bit later. And overall sort of overall well-being. And this is about a two-way process. So what we want to kind of look at is the three key parts of it. It's involving community members and hearing their voices and in decision making and problem solving. And comms is a huge part of this. So what the benefits of it are improved communication. Everything that we do is all about communication and people and what they value, why they do what they do. So you're likely to get increased civic participation. Excuse me, I haven't. Oh, just right on time. Now I can relax. Thank you. Appreciate it. And so this then results in better policy outcomes. And it's all about a learning process and engagement with people. And so for PIOs, it's absolutely crucial because this is about building trust and enhancing transparency. And this is kind of getting those insights so you can do your job better. With these insights as well come other benefits such as saving public money, because we're like actually listening to people and what they want rather than what we think they want. And we're also engaging with the right people at the right time. So I just want to kind of, does everyone have a communication strategy in there where they are? Because what I've found is it's pretty standard, like we have to have them in every government department in the UK. But what I've found is I've travelled around the States. A lot of people don't actually have a communication strategy, like an overarching one. They might have a crisis comms strategy, but not for their for everything they do around comms. So just kind of, I always like to define this because it took me forever to get my head around it when someone asked me to write one. But essentially, it comes down to what you're going to say, why you're saying it, who you're saying it to, and most importantly, what you hope to change, because all comms is about behaviour change. So there's a unit in the UK called the Nudge Unit, and it's essentially a behavioural science unit. And what they do is they try and change certain types of behaviour through communications. So it's kind of like when you get a text message to say, confirm you're going to the doctors. And it's like small little nudges to changing what they want people to do so that they can save money or change attitudes. So everything we want to do is like about a behaviour change when it comes to communication. So, and if you haven't got a communication strategy, I do have lots of templates for them. So you're welcome to, and I've also got some kind of step-by-step on how to build out your communication strategy. So feel free to get in touch. So this is kind of like what I call the wheel of community engagement. So I want to go around each stage of these and feel free to ask any questions as we go along because it may seem daunting at first, but essentially what we have here is a step-by-step process that we just have to keep going around to have really effective community engagement. So understanding the community, we need to know who our community is, and we can make assumptions. Everyone looks at their community based on who they are. In London, when I was in the City of London Police, we had things that we had to translate into like 18 or so different languages because it's such a multicultural community. And so there's kind of sub-communities within those as well. If you can't understand your community, you're not going to be able to understand how you talk to them and how you communicate with them. So we have to do stakeholder mapping exercises through that. And so with our stakeholder mapping exercise, it's always really, really valuable to do one. And again, I've got templates around these. I've done these with a lot of teams where we've spent half a day literally identifying every single stakeholder we have in our community. So that's not, it's a really broad term to say the public. And it can be quite a lazy term as well. And also one thing I would say, excuse me, is trying to avoid using the word citizen wherever possible if you have a diverse community. When I first moved to the States, I wasn't a citizen for about 5 years. So whenever I would read my city's communications saying our citizens are valuable to us, well, I'm not a citizen, even though I pay taxes. So it's kind of key things like that of like wording nuances and semantics. So we do our stakeholder mapping exercises to really see who we've got and amongst us. And sometimes it's helpful to bring in outside people into this, like faith leaders, you know, community groups, schools, and just really work out who is it that we talk to, who uses our services, and think about every touch point on what you do where someone in the community will come and engage with you, who they are, and you know what they do, what they think, what they feel. So once we've understood our community, we have to have our clear objectives. of what we're trying to achieve with community engagement. This may be that you're trying to, I mean, I'm putting it back to law enforcement, but it may be that there's a particular problem with crime, or it may be that you're wanting people to adopt a different way of recycling, or kind of paying their water bills, but electronically rather than by check. Anything like that is, what is it we want to do by achieving this community engagement plan? So clear objectives are always really, really important, because then they're measurable. So if we haven't hit those objectives, we can then look back around the cycle and see why we haven't hit them, and then adjust for the next time we go around there. So, and again, I've got many templates on here on PIO Toolkit around community engagement that you can just like pick up and fill in and use. So you can get those for free on there. So once we understand who we're talking to, and once we know what we want our objectives to be, this is where we can really hone in on our messaging. The key thing about this is that you can't have one message that fits everyone, right? So I may not speak to you in the same way that I may speak to you, because we all have different needs, wants, and things that matter to us. And I've always been fascinated by what motivates people to do things, and what language resonates with them, and how, and especially as I've traveled around the States, it actually really changes from state to state how people talk to people. So I live in Texas, and as a British person, when I first landed, I was horrified by how casual the government was in their languaging and saying "y'all" all the time. I was like, that's very disrespectful. Now, of course, I just say it all the time, and I've got my boots and everything. But it was really interesting that, does that land with everyone? Because they get a lot of visitors in Austin, and now the dynamic has changed so much because of immigration, but their language hasn't shifted, and I'm pretty safe to say there's no one from Austin, Texas. So I've got to be careful what I say, but it's really interesting to me how you travel through the way that like cities will communicate with their residents, visitors, students, what have you. So one of my big things is transparency and authenticity. I don't know what the data law, like open data laws are like in North Dakota, but one of the things that we were finding, particularly in the UK just before I left, was that we were getting so many freedom of information requests that it became overwhelming around arrest rates, crime rates. So we actually passed a law where the Open Data Act, what we did was we put every single data set we had online, made it available to people to do with what they wanted to do. What was really interesting that came out of it, was people started building apps with our data. So we had a whole crime mapping app, and people could just put in their postcode and zip code, and they could see what crimes were actually in the area. But because we were open and transparent with the data, we didn't have to worry about creating narratives, press releases, responding to freedom of information requests. So it was just like, take the data, we've got nothing to hide. And it really built trust around whether we were covering things up, which we never did. They like to think we did, but we didn't have the time to cover things up, frankly, or the resources or the wherewithal. And so transparency then leads to authenticity. And if you're more authentic with people, so yeah. Mhm. It was it was a national thing. So we had every police force in the country, which is only 47, so I appreciate it's a lot easier to handle. What they would do is every month it would be things like crime rates, how many crimes were reported, what types of crime, how many people were arrested, assaults on police. We would never put out personal stuff. It wasn't anything like that. It was just like recorded reports of things. So I think in like government cities, it would be like how many residents they have, how much trash has been collected, all the stuff that people ask regular freedom of information requests about. And what we did actually with that, following on, was we combined that with speaking to our contact center about all the queries they were getting, and what were the most common questions. So this is kind of like a side tip. If you do find that a lot of people are calling up and asking the same questions again and again and again, you log those, you speak to people who are in your 311, and then you look at the key themes. and then you create an FAQ on your website, and then you can see if there are constant questions about certain issues. That might be something you need to create a campaign about, an awareness campaign. And we were able to actually reduce call volume into our call center by looking at how we communicated with people, looking at data. I'm kind of going off on a bit of a tangent, but data-driven communications is so crucial now. And we've proven there's a certain project I worked on where we found that a lot of people, and again, this is a bit of an aside, but it does come into this because it is community messaging. When we were in Brighton, which is in the south of England, big homeless community. And what we found were that they weren't actually turning up. If they'd been arrested, they weren't turning up to answer their bail conditions. So what we did was we thought, well, how can we get them to do that? Because what was happening is they wouldn't turn up, they were then wanted, they needed to be arrested. So that would take 2 officers off the street for a day. The cost of that was significant over a period of time. So I said, well, why don't we just text them to remind them, because they live a chaotic lifestyle. It's not that they're doing it out of defiance, it's just that they forget. But everyone had a phone. So we texted them and we reduced the recidivism rate by something like 60%. And they showed up, we saved thousands just by that one text message saying, you're due to come in here. If you can't come, let us know, we'll come and pick you up. Job done. And it's like thinking creatively about using data in the community and how that community reacts. We can't expect someone who doesn't have an infrastructure to make their way to a police station that's like 3 miles away from where they're sleeping and remember to do so. So it's things like that around data, and I get really geeky about it. So if you've if you've got a problem, I can probably go work out through data and how you can do it. So yeah, there's that part of that authenticity piece is really, really important, because being authentic leads to trust. And again, I'll touch on that with my book. But transparency doesn't mean telling everyone everything. Just to clarify, transparency is about admitting mistakes. And I also think about informing people about process. So you can't just say you must do this. You always have to explain why. And you also, I think, have to explain why things take so long, why you can't do things the way you do. One of the things that I always like to do was sort of really work with people in any department I was in. People would complain about something. So, right, what are they complaining about? Why are they complaining about it? Okay, let's go through the process as they would, make a film about it, show them, and this is why I get the people involved in the whole chain of the process. I was working with a fire department in Houston, and they said that we're fed up with people saying they can't believe that fire trucks cost so much. So I said, okay, let's get all the equipment out, make a video, put a dollar sign on each piece of that equipment and say where their tax money's going and why. And so it's like people just need to know, oh, I see. Normally it's like, yeah, this is, we just have to accept it because it's the government. But I think if you explain processes and motivations and policies and procedures that are in place for a reason, and work out what matters to people. So in Houston, they didn't care about safety. They cared about the fact that their tax money was going up. They're having to pay more taxes. So you appeal to that side of them rather than you will die if we don't pay for this truck, because they don't care about that. They just want to buy brisket. So I can say that here. Anyway, so now we're getting through to the point where because we've identified these, the messages, the community, we're looking at our multi-channel approach and not a one size fits all. I always like to think about my granddad, who's 93. How would he get the information over my nephew, who's 12? Very differently, I'm sure. And also, will both of them understand the messaging that I'm putting out? So I've oftentimes actually called my granddad and said, will you have a look at this for me? And if he says, I don't know what you're talking about, I generally think I should probably rewrite what I've written. So I've got like mum check, dad check, nephew check. And if they get it, all of them, then I've done a good job. But yeah, that the channels, you shouldn't have to use all channels at all times. I think you have to be really, especially when you've got few resources, which I'm sure a lot of people have, looking at, it's not just social, it's not just press releases, it's like what is right for the community that we are trying to target and subsection of that community. I've found that old school approaches. You know, I remember around the Olympics, Muslim community wouldn't engage with us, but it was a big part of our area. So we had to put out safety messaging around the Olympics. It was a significant, like, when you've got the whole world coming to your little area, that's a big community that you have to engage with to keep them safe. And so we had to really go in there, and we actually used leaflets that was, you know, language translations, things like that, because social wasn't a thing for them at the time. So it's like really understanding that that's the key. It all comes back to understanding who you're talking to, because then you know how you want to talk to them. And this is the part where it gets challenging but interesting. So two-way collaboration is all about listening. It's all well and good putting stuff out there and going, yes, it's done, go away. But if you don't ask people whether it worked or what they thought about it, you will never learn for the next time. I've sat in on meetings like town halls, things like that. And this also works internally, by the way, this whole process, which I'll kind of come to, where people have said, this is absolutely awful. You didn't think about us, how we would, you know, take this, and it hurts because you've put your heart and soul in something. You know, have you ever done that where you put something out, it's brilliant, oh, look at my hard work, and then someone goes, no, that's rubbish. Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't want it in the first place, you didn't ask me. Oh, okay, I thought you might. Well, you should have asked. That's really what that comes down to. Is like, oh, this beautiful meal, I'm a vegetarian. Oh, didn't know, we didn't ask. So that's how I try and think of it, as like, you know, we have to talk, we have to engage with them. What I will say on this is that expecting people to always come to you is a really bad idea. I personally would not go to Austin City Hall to tell them what I think of them, because I would rather tell them like on the phone, what have you. So if they're saying they'll only come to, I only have the opportunity to go and talk to them at a town hall, I'm probably not going to do it. I'll give you a really good example of how, you know, you can change this. Is I was talking to a state trooper in, I don't know, South Carolina, and he was a huge guy, huge, and he had his hat on, and he said, ma'am, I don't understand why these mums won't come to me and like, or won't come to the barracks to get their child seat fitted. And I was like, have you looked in the mirror lately? Like, I'm 5'11" and you're like taller than me and massively intimidating in your uniform, and you're expecting them to go to a barracks to do this? How frightening do you think that is for a small child and the mum to do that? And he was like, I didn't think about it like that. And I said, what you do is you go to, I don't know, Staples, sit outside in the car park, you put the lights on, you get the kids to come and play in the car, you take your hat off, you talk to people. They are more likely to engage with you if it's on their like grounds or territory or somewhere that is less intimidating. And also it shows that you are compassionate and empathetic, rather than expecting them to sort of obey you and come to where you are. He's like, I just couldn't understand it when no one's doing it. So it's kind of thinking about like, what does the community want rather than what you want and what you're willing to do for them. So yeah, listening and empathy. He took his hat off and he was still just as tall. I thought it was the hat, but it was him. But like, I don't know what he thought of like some strange middle-aged British woman telling him to not do that, but yeah, who knows. And actually that's another thing as well. I was saying to the fire guys, they're trying to get compliance with safety in houses with Vietnamese community. And he was like, I said, do you go in your uniform? And he's like, yes, I do. I said, well, you are frightening to Vietnamese people because you represent authority, even though you're trying to help them. So take your uniform off, wear something, or wear something. And he did, and he got more compliance with it. So it's just understanding what frightens people, what motivates people, and asking them what they want. So, oh, I'm going the wrong way. Yes. I'm so sorry. I'm the Mary Poppins of comms. I know I talk very quietly. So sorry. Do I need to start again? I always get this. You'd think after 9 years of being in Texas, I'd be able to speak up. It's always a lot of fun going through a drive-through with me in Texas as well. Never ask for water and yogurt. So, oh, right. So once we've kind of got more feedback and we can look at what our engagement tools are and whether this is going to be surveys, whether this is going to be like online Reddit conversation. I don't know if anyone's done those, whether it's social media, as back in the day, it used to be tweetathons. You know, what are we using that's going to match them and what's going to get the most response from people there? Really identifying those, because also messaging that we've already established feeds into partly what our engagement tools are going to be as well. So getting those down is really important. There we go, going backwards. And this is the part that hurts, the evaluation and feedback. Feedback is a gift, apparently. I've had feedback in visible signs, but the evaluation part is really, really important, because this is where you're going to get criticised if you get it wrong. When you're looking at evaluation tools, that's why you kind of going back to your clear objectives around this. So what we want to make sure is that, have we hit our objectives? What was it that we were hoping to achieve? If not, why not? And what evaluation tools are you using? So I've got a lot of models on, and I don't mean Cindy Crawford, models on my website that are kind of like the evaluation that would fit what you're trying to achieve, so you can see, you know, how successful it's been. And also that feedback, you know, we were asking everyone what they thought about what we did. And I know feedback from a personal perspective is very, very objective, subjective, I should say. But we need to understand how it landed, whether it worked. Feedback can also be, did anyone actually do what they were supposed to do? Did we get fewer complaints about noise? Did we get fewer complaints about potholes? Probably not. Or pickleball courts not being ready. It's a pickleball is a theme everywhere I go. But so then we need to take this all into consideration, and then that is when we come on to our key part, which is the learning. So we have this continuous improvement there. And that's when we kind of like, so, okay, well, did it work? Didn't it work? Well, if it didn't, then we need to go right back to the beginning of understanding the community. So for me, this is like a really nice guide for just working through those whole steps of what we want to achieve in a campaign. It doesn't necessarily have to be everything you do. It could be one campaign. It could be a short campaign. It could be one that goes on like for months and months and months. But it's important to involve everyone who's you know, important to the campaign at every step of this process. And as I say, this also works internally as well. So understanding your community. When I've worked on things like where we've had to have mergers or mass redundancies, you've got mini communities within where you work, right, internally, and it works exactly the same way by using this whole process here. So, did you? Oh, you made the mistake of moving, so I thought you were interested in something. Yeah, sit on your hands. So yeah, this is kind of what I live by, and I've got a whole sort of course on each stage of this that you can reference or get access to. Everyone, and did everyone get a membership? Or was that last year I sent that out? Okay. I'll make sure everyone gets signed up, so you can get access to this. So has anyone got any questions on this or any stage of this? Yes. I, oh, hand on my heart, personally, I haven't done it professionally. However, I've spoken to people who have. That's very much face to face, using community leaders. I've noticed that in Canada as well. They've got a really fascinating thing where the RCMP will go into tribal communities and teach them how to build their own police department. And I've got a great article on it, and then literally they just leave them to it. And what that is, a lot of like building personal relationships, and that is also an engagement tool and a channel, is face to face. And I think as communicators we forget that sometimes. So that would be my like very light advice on that. But I actually, there was someone from who came last year to the conference. She came, I can't remember her name. Yes. Well, I'll dig her name out, and she would be a great person to talk to if that's something you deal with. So yeah. Yes. Yeah, anyone else got any questions on this part? Well, actually, that's that kind of brief. And that's my one of my books, but I've got some other things that I wanted to kind of share with you. But I'm happy to kind of take a little bit of a break and take some questions or about anything comms wise. I've also got my crisis comms, the continuation of the crisis comms circle that I can jump into as well. But I'll do my trust thing last, I think so. But has anyone got anything question wise generally about sort of comms problems they're having at the minute? Oh yeah, and I'll come to you.
Are the people of Minot, right? So many of our, our primary customers are people that live hours away, so they're very familiar with. So, we can say, hey, come to this, and when you have locals that are undermining that narrative or just telling a different story, they're more trusted than us, right? And so, again, not where it needs to be here. But we need the humans of Minot to view the opportunities within our community. And that's where that's where we continue to struggle.
Yes, yeah, completely. So what's the narrative that the residents are saying? Is that they don't want people coming here?
Why not Minot? And the reason you're on that narrative is either why not, and it's in a negative tone, right? And then you've got the other side of the aisle that people say, why not, and they mean it in like a positive light. So a year launch a campaign trying to make it, why not? To try to shine that, to try to pivot that narrative, change a little, get people to think a little differently. Well, what happened was the people that are already saying, not why not, grabbed onto it and they're like, yes, let's take that, let's run with it harder. The people that have the negative narrative haven't grabbed on at all. They're just kind of like.
So give me an example of what one of the negative things would be. Right. But are there things to do? Okay. And so is this mostly on social that it's happening, I'm assuming? Because I'm wondering if if it's the people from outside are seeing this narrative, I'm assuming that would be on social that they're seeing the narrative, or is it kind of like word of mouth? Or because I think if you originate, yes, sorry, go on. You haven't been to my hometown. That's why I moved here. Um,
This is like the first community and it may bleed into the issues with Visit Minot. One of the communities I lived in was Rapid City, and one of the things they did was they created like a free entry to all the things that are happening, and it was given out to front end workers who worked at other tourism related entities, so that those front end workers who were maybe working at a restaurant or something like that, they had been to Mount Rushmore. So when a tourist comes into town or somebody comes into town and asks what's there to do, they can say, oh, I've been to Mount Rushmore. It's really great. You should go there, because they had the opportunity to go for free to that event and were able to spin it word of mouth type of thing. So maybe it's an idea for Stephanie.
so just to your point about it's not all about tourism. Tourism is part of the ecosystem that keeps the community thriving. So it's really important to kind of, I think, yeah. So for me, there aren't many people that moan more than British people. So I'm really good at working out why people moan, because I do it myself. But what I would say is, it's like, okay, we need to identify why are they moaning, who are they, what is their problem, essentially, like what's your problem, and identifying where they are and why have they set up this page. Is it just because they've got nothing better to do and it's so cold outside that that's frankly what, because I went downtown, it's lovely, like I was like, I wish it wasn't as cold because I would get out. But seriously, it's like, well, what is it that started them off? Is it, that just they're just moaning for the sake of moaning? Because you always get squeaky wheels, and there will always be a portion of people that just you'll never change their mind. But I think once you understand why they keep doing this, what is it? I mean, is it a case of the fact, they're just unhappy people with the city and they're not just going to change? Or is it that something's happened along the way? Or is there, like, what's the barrier for them going out and discovering things? What's the blockage? It may not be money, it may be transportation and things. I think sometimes you can, if you can find a bit of joy for someone, but that's a real, like, beyond the communicator's realm at some point. How
But when I hear, you know, that, because I hear this narrative often of, well, Minot's just so different, and I'm like, I want to say bogus. No, it's not. And the more we keep repeating that, and letting ourselves believe that, the more that we're just going to perpetuate this right now. And say, you know what, this, no, we aren't that different. Let's stop using that as an excuse. Then my question is, okay, great, I appreciate your shaking your head, yes, because I think you for the confirmation on this. But then my question is, as a community, each of us are here. This is a phenomenal group of humans that truly have the opportunity to say, all right, let's start here. So can you give us that?
Well, yeah, firstly, I will say you are not alone. Really good example would be City of Port St. Lucie in Florida. They're one of the fastest growing cities in Florida, and they have pages dedicated to saying why they're so awful. But they put on amazing events. I've been to them. They always got something going on, and people are like me about everything. They moan that they actually brought their trash collections down to 1 a week instead of 2. I was like, okay, Florida, get a grip. But I'll come back with a question first of all. Do you engage with people on social if they're putting that stuff out there? And have you tried like identify the key influencers and understand why they're doing it? Would you entertain the thought of going to their pages and rebutting? Because that's something I've seen work if done with humor as well. Like Port St. Lucie did it, and they were like, they went to this page and were like, have you actually looked at what we're up to this week? And they will post photos on their events, things like that. Like, or set up an event that is, do you hate, yeah, if you could actually set up an event that's like, do you hate us that much? Well, come to our party, like just for them, and just have fun with it almost. Yeah, a wine fest with wine. So I think I've pulled people out on their pages and I said, do you want to come and visit the police station? And they go, and ride along, have some fun, meet the people behind what we're trying to do for you. And I think sometimes when you personalize your brand and show the humans behind it, like if you've got small businesses, for example, that put their heart and soul into what they're doing, and then get a video of them talking about why they do it, why community is important to them, and then put that video on those whining pages, at least you're then showing the rest of the community that you're kind of standing up for them, but not putting too much effort into those people and feeding the fire, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So they might want to be corrected, but they can't. I feel that the final hires.
Yeah.
It's the same. I think that's kind of where the struggle is. I agree with you. I agree 100%. It's the people, and I refuse that, but not because I'm not, but that audience is willing to, I think that risk isn't so much of saying this, it's the people listening to it may believe that negative or that false narrative or that false information. There are too a lot. And they do, so it also is one of those things that I think it's that it exists, it starts to our community.
Yeah, and I think as communicators, we are overly sensitive to stuff because we see the bigger picture. Whereas someone like my mum, who's like, oh, and then she's on to the next thing, she's like goldfish brain. I think sometimes a lot of that is, I think we overestimate people's intelligence. No, how much they truly care about stuff. Like some people just hit reply and they don't think about it again. But I think your point about like community advocates is really good. So I've got a presentation that I talk about misinformation and how to combat it because it's such a challenge now. Now I've got AI threats in there as well. And one of the things I've always said is that if you have one source of truth, if you're seeing, like I mentioned earlier, having repeated issues that come up and comments and questions, you could probably, on all those pages, if you did like used Claude or ChatGPT and say, assess this page, tell me what the key themes are. What are people talking about the most? Give me a list of 10 things, right? It will draw them all out. Then you've got your issues that you need to deal with from that source. And then from that, you can create a page, answer those questions, do like rebuttals or fact checking. Then every time something comes up, if you've got the resources to do so, and this is a thing I appreciate, going onto Facebook, for example, is draining. And then just putting that, actually, I think you'll find ... not in that sarcastic sense, but, and then you've got those facts there. And if you keep, consistency is key in communications. And I think if you just keep saying, no, 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 that may shift it, but it also takes real world shifting at kind of where are they going? Where are they seeing adverts for things to do? Like, where are your comms being placed? If you were to think about what that person does in a day and where they go and what they're exposed to, why are they seeing that or thinking that there's nothing going on? Is it because they're probably sitting on their bum all day at home on the computer? Maybe. It's like being creative about how you can kind of shift mindsets. You're not going to do it with everyone, but some people, if you get that one person who's quite key in that movement to go, oh, I've done that, I've changed minds by just getting people down there or, sitting and talking to them. And sometimes it does take that. Or it would be someone else in the community. Like, are there community figures that you can go to and say, look, can you help shift this narrative for us? Because you can guarantee they won't listen to you over someone else. Who is most influential? It doesn't necessarily have to be the most powerful person. It could be like Granny at the grocery store. She's the one telling everyone, like, go on your Facebook and do comments, and there are people like that. So it's like I'm trying to work out what the source is, maybe, but hopefully that's helpful. Okay, cool. Yes.
Bigger presence like that, so people words.
Yeah. Did you see the thing where Southwest Airlines and Delta, they were having a thing where at Denver Airport, Southwest was, one of the airlines was saying how good they were. So then the other airline put a billboard above it saying, actually, we do this. And they were making really good comments. Look it up. I can't remember the exact thing, but it's very, very good. It's just like, no, we're coming back at this. I think the times of where we wouldn't comment on things is just, we have to leave that behind. It's like having a voice and showing the community that you're standing up for them and that you care, because no comment is like never. And I think now it's not just like, oh, we can only do it in our one branded page. No, I'm going to go out there and say, excuse me, this is who I work for. This is my community. I live here too. And I think people forget that as public communicators, we are actually part of the community. So yeah.
Whoever is running the the reels, or I don't know if it's on TikTok too or whatever, of like the really North Dakota isms for Minot. That is so funny. I love those. Like, I'm not from here, but I watch every one of them because it pops up on my Facebook. Yep. So those are awesome, and I love those. And I think that that's having that humor and that human side of things is really helpful.
I will say airports are doing brilliantly at the
Yeah.
moment. I follow all of them because I'm a geek, but some of them are just so funny. And I appreciate certain institutions and agencies have to be really careful with humour, but I think others can push it. So yes. Oh, say nice things about Detroit. It's kind of thing to the public that how many dollars does tourism bring in and how much it does for your community? And we should be running ourselves down to people who are coming here and spending money in our businesses. So I don't know if there'd be anything on their website or anything. I just thought it was kind of did bleed over into stickers that say nice things about Detroit. Well, and also like it is like if you carry on moaning about this place, no one's going to come here and spend any money, so it's going to get even worse. So what do you want? And I would obviously wouldn't say it like that, but it's like my thinking is, but you're just not doing yourself any favors here. And I think again, it always comes back down to like, why are they doing this? What are people's motivations and what do they want? What will make them happy? For some people, it's money that all they care about. For some people, it's nature. For some people, it's healthcare. You know, it's like what matters to me is not what matters to the person next to me. And it's kind of working that out. So
Discussion, but I'd love to move forward with truth.
Okay, so Steph, I hope this might be an idea for the interim as you're trying to navigate fixing the community's perspective, but I had the best shopping experience on Black Friday at Old Navy. So my daughter is 6'2". She's a freshman. Every pants that she tries on are like 3/4 pants. Like it just happens. But you can't always find the same pant when you're looking online. They had QR codes on every item that they had there. So like they had a picture of the pants, they told you what they were, and they had a QR code. And I thought that was so cool because then I could have her try on the pant, make sure it fits everywhere else, and then I can go online just using the QR code, add it to the bag. And by the end of the trip, we didn't walk out with anything that day, but we had it ordered because she just couldn't get the stuff there. So maybe there's an option of in the interim doing like a QR code campaign where you talk with like businesses, you talk with retailers, you talk with all these people and just say, if somebody asks, it's as simple as saying, here, scan this. This will tell you all the things that are going on. I mean, it worked for me for the store. And then we went to other stores and I was like, oh, they don't have that. You know, like I have to go try and spend 20 minutes finding a pair of jeans on American Eagle because
no, American Tool.
so
These are American Tool. Look at that. That's all right. Anyway. Right. So you want me to move on with my try? Okay. Oh yeah, you can always I always make myself as available to people. Find me on LinkedIn. You know, I love helping people and talking about this stuff, you know. All right. So you are the first people to properly hear about this, I think. This is my third book. It's called Trust, Why It Breaks and How We Mend It. And this is essentially over a year in the making. And this is going to be quite a personal kind of explanation of why I wrote this book. I went through a pretty tough time about 18 months ago for a little while, and all my interactions I noticed professionally when I was going to agencies. So some of the work I did was for the Department of Justice, and I was brought in under the COPS department to work with police departments who were in consent decrees. So basically, I was the one that came along and told them their baby was really ugly. And maybe could not be prettified, if that's a word. But essentially, I would go into the police department, I'd completely audit their comms, their community engagement, their media training, and it was a mess usually. And so everything, every time I did that came down to trust. They weren't being trusted by the community, they weren't being trusted by their officers, they weren't trusted by government. And I was like, how did it come to this? But then what I was also finding at this time is everywhere I kind of went, I was like, why do we trust people? And I was really fascinated, like we get into our car and trust that no one's going to crash into us. We get on a plane and trust the pilot's going to land it safely. We trust that when we pick up our, medications, that they're not going to kill us. But it's implicit. Why do we do that? So I started looking into this and trying to map out everywhere I went, every meeting I went, I wrote down notes about, what the trust issues were there, and also self-trust. And so I found that this kind of got into a bigger and bigger thing. And so this book came about and I was like, really, everything in communications, whether it's professional communications like we do or personal communications, is all about trust. Because if you don't believe the words people are saying, it's pointless, it's a futile exercise. So I was looking at also, why is it that some people you just think, I don't trust you anymore? And it's not through big things, through one big event. It's essentially lots of little things that thread together that kind of erode trust. Trust is very much about erosion rather than just swept away. It's kind of like broken promises. I'm sure we've all felt this, where we're like, okay, I'll give you another try. But that's not just about people, that's about organizations as well. And when you look at brands that do really, really well, so I'm going to be a cliche, but my favorite brand is British Airways, because I would fly back and forth to British Airways. And I always trust them because they are consistent. They're consistent in their branding. They're consistent in their service. I know that every time I get on that flight, I'm going to get exactly the same service, usually the same kind of food, the same quality. They're going to say the same things, and to reassure me, everything. So I've trusted them for like 25 years. American Airlines, however, and this is not a country thing, I'm just very clear about that, are completely inconsistent. I don't trust that I'm going to get home at any decent time tonight, because I never have done, right? They're always delayed. They always wear inconsistent uniforms. Well, like they never look the same. And I'm not talking like I'm a fascist or anything, right? Just to clarify. I mean, just a bit of the, professionalism. And you never know kind of what the rules are when it comes to baggage. You never know, it's just a mess. So I don't trust them because they're inconsistent and they don't keep their promises that they're going to get me to where I want to be on time. But then we think about that with the city. Same thing, and I'm going to use Austin again. I'm leaving next week for Florida, so I don't care. They say they're going to pick up my trash. I have to get my trash out by 6 a.m. I've got sorry, have you noticed I've got a thing about trash? They're like, get it out by 6 a.m. and they'll collect it. Well, sometimes it's like a day late. Like, it's inconsistent service. I don't know if any of you saw, they recently redid their logo. And I want to bring it up. I might bring it up at the end because I want to see your faces when you see it. It cost 1.4 million to redo their logo, to rebrand. And yes, I will actually bring it up because I'm still quite cross about it. And it completely undermined everything because of the way they handled it. So again, I'm kind of laboring the point a bit here, but this is in people, services, what we do, the work we work with our co-workers, do they trust us to do a good job? So anyway, so then I'm going down a rabbit hole in all of this. And I realised that there are 4 threads to what it looks like to be trustworthy. And I'm sorry, this is probably a bit light for here, but essentially, if we want to have trustworthy behaviour, oh no, I've put a U in there. Sorry about that, it's in British English. And I will say my book is actually in British English, because I thought if I wrote it in American English, no one would trust me, because it's not my first language. I consider myself to be bilingual, and yeah, anyway. So we've got clarity. Do people understand you? Do people understand your motivations? Why are you doing what you're doing? And then we have consistency. Do your actions match your words? That's what I'm talking. Consistency is just so important. And this is like, it can be over years, weeks, days, hours. Like, am I being consistent now? Probably not, but I'm hoping that you'll come away and think, yeah, I trust her to do a decent job. Actually, we won't ask, don't I? And then care. Do people feel valued by what you're doing or what you're saying, and that consistency around it? And then the courage part, and this is the hardest part for me. In my policing career, when I was director of communications, I was privy to a lot of very sensitive information, and things that were significant reputational risks. I don't know if any of you have seen the Netflix documentary about Jimmy Savile, which is nicely titled British Monster. He was a very prolific, very famous paedophile in the UK, and it was a national investigation why pretty much every police force in the country did not investigate him, and he had thousands of victims. And I was responsible for a number of forces and how we handled that response to that. And there are a lot of people like as a result of that, we had subsequent people come forward to report other crimes of a similar nature. One of them was about one of our officers in the 60s, this young girl. She came into the police station and said that he did this to me. He was one of your officers, and it happened in this building. Now, the irony of it was the accommodations blocks had been converted into offices, and it actually happened in my office, but in the 60s. It was all very odd and very upsetting. So I went to my chief and I said, we need to be transparent about this has happened. And he said, no, absolutely not, because we'll be seen as this, that, and the other. And I completely fundamentally disagreed with him. And I think when you have cognitive dissonance about what you believe in and what your organisation is asking you to do, it's incredibly stressful. And I've got a whole thing. I think you saw it when I was my mental health one about cognitive. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, I actually went above his head to the Home Office to say, we need to do this for public trust, national public trust. If they then subsequently find out that we've covered this up, that will be significantly damaging. And I thought I was going to lose my job, but I could not see this be covered up. And it was a cover up, actually. It wasn't, because I made it so, but it's about having the courage to do what's right to ensure that you are trusted down the line. What happened was I proactively went to every newspaper and told them what had happened. And because I took the wind out of the sails, it made one newspaper on page 8, and that was it. If we'd have covered that up, it would have been front page news. But I will admit I was extremely scared to do it, because also my family were in that same police department. My mum, my stepdad. I was my stepdad's PIO. That was horrible. I always think they know better. So these are kind of like what I consider to be the 4 threads of trust. So this is what I want, anyone to take away with them, I think, and we've talked about this. So I feel like definitely we are opening up more to communication, dialogue. Definitely, I don't think I've seen no comment now for a long while on something, which is good. I think I've always said this, we can always give people information without telling them anything. Or we can always tell someone, we can always tell people something without giving them information. So holding lines, holding statements, like and this is where the trust part comes in. This is what we know, this is what we don't know, but we will keep you updated. But it's sticking to that, we will keep you updated, and saying you'll do it by the time you do it. And if you can't, you then come in and say, we can't do it right now, but we'll do it again. There's nothing worse than waiting and sit. I don't know if you, like me, have nothing better to do than sit and wait for someone to come out and do a press conference, and they wait and you wait and you wait, and they're filling and filling. It's like, well, they said they were going to come out at this time. So we don't want to create anxiety for people by not fulfilling what we said we're going to do. And I think that's really important in the community, no matter what the event is or the incident. And I'm not talking just about crisis comms here. I'm probably you know, just essentially do what you say you're going to do and ensure that you're having that open dialogue with people and being honest, open and transparent. This is something that I've come across a lot, particularly law enforcement. If your internal culture is broken, you will never fix an external culture, because that is the bedrock of what you do. If you yourself, and I've seen this, I would go out a lot to different police stations, and I just listened to what officers were saying about leadership. They trusted me because I never grasped them up, if that's a phrase. I never told on them. I just took it away and thought, well, what are people saying internally about command team, about management? And they just didn't trust them because the chief at the time just let them down too many times. There was a poor communication. And so what I decided to do, where the chief didn't like it, but he had to do it. I decided to set up an online rumour control page internally about things that were going on. And there were all sorts of rumours going around just because people were moaning. They're like middle-aged police officers that moan. And so we got them to put all their stuff on there. We said, this is anonymous. We promise you it's anonymous. And they put things on there. And then what I did was I got the chief to sit at the computer and I filmed him responding to each comment so that they didn't think it was me or a comms person just speaking on his behalf. And not only did we get to kill so many rumours, but they trusted him, because he then came back and said, I've seen every comment you've written and I'm sorry. And I was just like, oh God, this is going to be awful. I'm going to lose my job. But it worked. And the culture started to change. What we found was that the way, because of the internal changing culture, it actually affected how people were dealing with members of the public, because they were more fulfilled and happy and they trusted that they were going to be supported if something went wrong. So it's really important to work internally on your culture through messaging as well, and make sure it's collaborative with your external and matches as well. You can't have internal comms that doesn't match external comms, because again, we're part of our community that we also serve. And if someone ever says, I pay your wages, you say, well, I do too. That's really important to remember. So I think, again, this is like what I was saying is the consistency of how you can rebuild trust, and saying what you're going to do. Like, there's nothing worse than like the apology that sounds hollow, and it's like, well, okay, you apologized 6 months ago, but nothing's changed. No policies have been changed, no lessons have been learned. What are you doing about this? And it's that consistent thing. And one campaign we worked on, which worked really, really well, was so simple, was You Said, We Did. We allowed people to public at any point where the public had contact, where they could write down things like, oh, bicycle thefts are up, we haven't seen the police for 3 days. So we would say, you said you were concerned about bicycle thefts, we increased patrols at this time each day. You said you were worried about car theft, we made sure we came and sort of checked security in that area, that kind of thing. So we said, you said, we did. We just consistently did an update on a You Said, We Did every week. And we just kept adding to them. And so the public can see that. So again, it's that consistency around it. So this is kind of like my book in a nutshell. However, what I've gone into here is like societal trust, personal trust, and our own self-trust, which is the one thing that I really challenge with. I was challenged about, because if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to be able to kind of bring about other people's change and trust and what have you, and trusting the work you do, trusting who you are. And one thing that I've learned from someone was that if you're very, very firm on your values, it makes decision making a lot easier to what you will and won't tolerate and what you will and won't challenge. If you trust yourself, what you believe in and what's right, even in those hard times, like when you have to push back to a leader or someone who's told you to do something you're not comfortable with. Because for me, it was about what's right for the public, what's right for the people who work here. If I don't do this, this can not only ruin the reputation of policing nationally, it's also going to ruin the reputation of every single police officer who goes out on duty. We found that every time there was a scandal, assaults on officers would go up, even if it wasn't even in our area. So that's where like excellent communications, trustworthy communications can actually save lives, I believe, and prevent harm. So that's it in a nutshell, but I'm happy to take questions. We've got a few minutes left. So, but there's a little code there. So if you want to get the pre-order, it's signed by me. That adds much value, but there's a discount there for you as well. But I know I'm going to send you the link to everything as well. So I hope that makes sense of the concept. I think right now, trust is so important more than ever. And I also go into why do we trust like influencers rather than politicians, or that always fascinates me. So that's what it comes down to, like, who do we engage with to tell our stories? Probably not a councilman or what have you, because no one trusts them. But why don't they trust them? So any questions, anyone? Yes. No, I love questions. Mhm.
One of the things was, like addressing. You speak a little bit to that. I mean, we saw things where it was, they thought after we took COVID, like swabs, they thought we were taking them back into our trailers and actually putting COVID virus on the files, and then turning up positive. Some of the other things, like with the vaccine, the government's inserting kind of chips through the vaccine.
Yeah, I heard.
Talk a little bit about some of that, like how we handle conspiracy theory.
So we've had the one consistent conspiracy theory we had was that our whole command team, and myself included, were like a cabal of, like, we were out to get this one guy, and he set up a whole website that was just basically saying how corrupt we were and how corrupt I was, and everyone in there. So every news piece he would that I would put out, he'd kind of come back to it and say, this isn't true and I have proof, and things like that. We got a lot of those in the police, like of the way, I don't know, it was what we did. It was hard work, and it doesn't work with some people. There are certain people who are just not going to change their mind at all. Because logic doesn't come into it. It's all about emotion. However, we decided to be as boring as we possibly could be. So everything we found, we've like, I think you'll find that actually, all we've got time to do is like wash our cars and go out and just it's like, what do you think we do with our time? So we were really, really transparent about like going on shift, and we'd get, I say films, like day in the life type stuff. And it was just really, it was tough, but we'd also try to find, like in the COVID stuff, I know a lot of people like, well, these are the facts, but fact doesn't work. Emotion is the thing. And it's kind of like sensible people you can appeal to. And they are out there. It's like I say, the people that have the more nonsense to spout, the louder they are. So it's kind of appealing to the quiet people and kind of measuring what engagement you get on the truth stuff that you put out there, if that makes sense. And really having that one page, that source of truth, that is literally just fact after fact after fact. Because then you are not going to change everyone's minds. There are still people that think I'm like a fascist communicator who is like doing the work of the devil. I didn't get paid enough for that. But that's it. There's a guy who is a friend of mine, a family. He's actually a scientist and was like worked on oil rigs and things like that. He has completely changed. He thinks that vaccinations are evil and stuff. And you talk to him and like, how and why? And it's like social media. A lot of it's perpetuated by social media and that anxiety of going out and things like that. So it's a struggle. But I think at the end of the day, if you're always factual and you've got that resource that you said, I've done all I can do. Like, this is the most I can do, and I can't pick and choose who's going to believe me or this. So the answer is you can't really fully, I would say, and it's kind of accepting that, because you will go mad. There are some people that I'd be like, how on earth? Why would you even, you watch too much telly for a start, and you're on social all the time. You haven't got a grip of real life. So sometimes you have to like let them go. But I think still being consistent with your messaging is like the best thing you can do. Sure. Can I show that logo? Actually, I maybe shouldn't look at it because it might trigger me. Hold on. Sorry, I've just looked at it again. You can find me on LinkedIn. Under, there we go. And also I'll email you and you can forward my email on if you want. So yeah, that's it. Canva, anyone? I mean, $1 million to create this blue and green. Am I the only one getting cross about this? Well, the thing is, at the time, they completely mismanaged the comms because they just announced cuts to firefighters' salaries. So you can imagine how that went down. It's got nothing Texan about it because Texans are so proud. You have to have a star on everything. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So it's a seal. So they never actually had a logo. They just put the seal on everything. And that's what I recognize as Austin. Then this came out and I was like, is this a healthcare company? Like what? Water? There are no hills in Austin. Like, but anyway. No, I'm right. They could have done some. I mean, I could have done something. I'm not even well, I'm Brexon, but yeah, they wanted to do consistent branding across because they had so many departments. But they basically said it represents the rivers and the greenery of Austin. Well, considering at that point we'd had no rain for 3 months, and I say, and no, they never, none of them. They did this really ill-informed TikTok video where this the kind of quite junior person in the comms department said, "Hey y'all, this is why we've chosen to do our logo," and the comments were vicious. Apps, all of them. Yeah, and they were like, "No, the cost isn't the design; it's putting it on all the cars." And like, but we didn't need one. We needed better infrastructure, and such like so. Been turned off. Someone put some money in the meter. Oh, so anyway, yeah, so that's my last moan, but but thank you for your time. I really appreciate you having me, and I hope it's been useful. And if anyone's got, please get in touch. Find me on LinkedIn. Literally Christine Townsend. You should be able to find me. So.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, obviously I work for the prison system and we battle that community part of it. So I mean, I do plan on connecting with you and kind of picking your brain, and even on the
course.
homelessness part too. I mean, that getting your phone number, texting, all that, I think is brilliant. And so, I mean, anything you guys have questions on, reach out to her, reach out to me, info@ndpio .org, and I can connect you with Christine if you want. But just a wealth of resources, especially her PIO toolkit. And so we're just very grateful to have her here. Privilege, honestly. And I would love to see, if you guys aren't members of NDPIO yet, reach out to me, ask me why. I can tell you a whole story about my story of becoming involved in NDPIO, but I won't bore you about it today. But
my favorite one in the country, I will say that. I know, I mean, and I honestly mean that, like the engagement and I always love coming here because everyone's got so many wonderful questions and feedback, and it's just fun, but everyone's so willing to learn. Whereas you go somewhere else, like I won't mention California, and they just really think they're really special. So everyone, I'm really always happy to come here, even when my limbs fall off frostbite.
That's why we have it in July, our conference, so that we don't have to say.
Yeah.
But there's her LinkedIn. But mostly I just really wanted to say thank you again to everybody for being here. Congratulations on the conference registration. But we'll have more information on that coming soon. And we have Rob lining up a whole bunch of monthly trainings for you guys. And I'm excited to start promoting those. So keep an eye out for that. And and then I forgot to mention, I apologize. Our monthly trainings, if you didn't hear, are switching. They will be open to everybody. You don't have to be a member. However, there's a fee to it, and it's in the $20 range. I don't recall it off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But if you guys ever see something, you're not a member, maybe you don't fit the criteria for it, those trainings will be open to everybody. Just a small fee if you want to attend it. So, but with that, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for hosting, letting us be here, and thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.